About 8 years ago, Super Mario Odyssey was released, and the game was released to tremendous acclaim. To this day, it is tied as the best reviewed Mario game. It is the best-selling 3D Mario game of all time, and most importantly of all, even 8 years later, the game is still a ton of fun to play. So, with the Switch slowly reaching its well-earned pension, and with the next Mario adventure likely right around the corner, I thought it might be a good time to take a look back at Odyssey, to take a look at what made the game so great, what the evil community did to the poor game over the years, where it could have been even better, and to have some fun with the game for one final time before the next Mario game jumps onto our consoles in the form of a Donkey Kong game. But you see, over the years I've beaten Odyssey dozens of times. I played the game in its intended way, I speedran it for a bit, I tried all sort of silly challenges, but there's actually one thing that I never tried in Super Mario Odyssey. I never tried to beat the game without touching a single filthy coin. We should finally change that. So in this video, we are going to do two things. On the one hand, we will attempt to beat Super Mario Odyssey without touching a single evil coin. We'll try to beat the game under the premise that coins are as deadly as they are shiny. But on the other hand, we're also going to take a look back at the game and discuss a couple of interesting things about it along the way. We'll chat a bit about the game's design, its speedrun, how it evolved, and certain aspects of the game's user interface, among other things. And in the end, we will not only have taken a look back at Super Mario Odyssey, the most successful 3D Mario game to date, but we will also know whether it is possible to beat Super Mario Odyssey without touching a single deadly coin. What can't possibly go wrong? Hooray! So gentle ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people in general, are you ready? Then let's do this. Super Mario Odyssey begins in an airship far above the Mushroom Kingdom. I actually quite like the opening. It throws us right into the action without wasting any time. But while Mario is up in the air and gets his Italian bottom handed to him by the worst turtle he ever met, let's quickly talk about the worst currency that Mario could possibly pick up today. Let's talk about the rules of our little self-set coinless challenge. First things first, we are playing the game on the current retail version of the game. So should we use any glitches or exploits, then those tricks also work on a copy of Mario Odyssey that you may have lying around at home. Second, what counts as collecting a coin? Well, a coin counts as collected when the coin counter counts it as collected. There is a coin counter in the top left of the screen. As soon as this coin counter counts upwards, it counts as touching a coin. Simple as that. And as soon as this coin counter is not at 0 anymore, we consider Mario to be legally dead. Whenever we die in the game, we lose 10 coins, which means we can just jump off a cliff in case we accidentally collect a coin and start over. Awesome. So that's what we do if we accidentally collect a coin. But what about unavoidable coins? What if the worst case happens? What if we actually have to pick up a coin to proceed? Well, for that case, we got another counter, something that I'd like to call our shameful coin counter of shame. So what is the shameful coin counter of shame counting, one might ask? Well, all the shameful instances where we encountered a coin that we were not able to avoid, of course. Finally, what about the violet coin-shaped objects that are hidden in every stage, one might ask? Well, I'm glad one might be asking, because contrary to what most people believe, those objects are not real coins. Those objects are coin-shaped tokens of disgrace. They're disgusting and they're filthy, but they are not considered to be coins for the sake of our run today. So the violet coins in the game can be avoided without many issues, but it is still possible that we might grab one by accident while playing the game. If this happens, we're going to count the incident in a different counter. This counter here, the coins of shame counting coin counter of shame coins, which is obviously not to be confused with our shameful coin counter of shame, since they count different things. Awesome, that's all we need to establish. So how's Mario been doing? He fell out of the sky, crashed into the ground headfirst, lost his head that he had worn for decades, lost track of his beloved princess, and teamed up with a magical head ghost named Cappy. Well, good for him. The Cap Kingdom is a really unique choice for the first world of a Mario game. You see, the Cap Kingdom is actually the closest the game ever gets to a ghost house level. The entire thing is covered in fog, there are cap ghosts, in the middle there is a huge tower reminding us of a lighthouse, and everything is designed in a color scheme of black and white. Mario Odyssey's first level is actually its ghost house, which is a really unusual choice for the game, but one that I'm actually surprisingly fond of. It gives the game a bit of a more mysterious, slower opening, and I think that really fits the game. Our path through the stage leads us into the lighthouse-like tower, and in its center, the capture mechanic is tutorialized. But before we take a look at the Frogofied version of Mario, we actually have to talk about something else. You see, when attempting to beat a game coinless, we're always only ever considering our own point of view. We might chatter about how we can avoid coins, we discuss strategies to dodge the shiny troublemakers, we look for exploits that allow us to not pick them up, and so on. We always only ever focus on ourselves and our coinless journey through the game. But what we fail to think about is the actual viewpoint of the coins. How are the coins feeling that we are leaving them behind each run? What does it do to them that we go through all this trouble just to never pick them up? You know, all the coins ever wanted was to be touched. Yet over and over again, we neglect them. We left them out in the open, no matter the weather. We left them behind in the burningly bright sun or frozen in an icy grave. No matter how much glow-ups they got, no matter how shiny they presented themselves, and no matter how polished their appearance, we always chose to ignore them. We left them behind, helpless and alone, over and over again. And those years of neglect, of humiliation, of broken dreams, and of lonely nights freezing out in the open, all those years, they did something to the coins. It changed them. It made them realize something. No matter what they do, we will never just pick them up by choice. If they ever want to escape the hellish reality of being a coin left in the desert, then they have to change tactics. They have to evolve. And thus, they changed strategy. In Super Mario Odyssey, the coins no longer only sit in the middle of inopportune places, hoping that we run into them by accident. Oh no. They came up with an entirely new way of fighting for collection. They now engage in a strategy for which I'd like to coin the term guerrilla welfare. Have you ever heard the old saying that the enemy of your enemy is your friend? Well, the coins took that saying to heart. They teamed up with all of Mario's enemies in a desperate attempt to finally get collected. They hid in bullet bills, they sneaked into innocent Goombas, they infiltrated Cheap Cheeps and tainted dumb Hammer Bros. They hid in the environment, they camouflaged themselves so that we can't see them, and they infiltrated many harmless looking objects. Seriously, there are coins everywhere in the game. There are coins in the crates, there are coins in the candles, there are coins in the posters, coins in the hearts, coins in the bushes, and coins in the bees. There are coins in the walls, coins in the chests, coins in the air, and coins in the oceans. There are coins in the fish, coins in the fence poles, coins I have still no idea where they came from, and worst of all, there are even coins in the frogs. If we accidentally interact with any of the frogs here, we are immediately croaked a crooked coin, which forces us to jump into our doom. One thing shall be spoiled. We're going to run into a lot of very strange and interesting problems over the course of our attempt to beat the game coinless today. But it's never going to be a coin chilling out in the open that is causing us a headache. It's always going to be the result of guerrilla welfare. But one cointestrophe after the other. As long as we're a bit careful here, it is possible for us to reach the top of the tower without any complications. At the top, we run into our first brutal boss fight. Every time we hit one of Bowser's wedding planning rabbits onto the head, they not only get angrier, but they also try to punish us by showering us with a dangerous golden ring of coins. Luckily for us, it is possible to dodge this shiny threat with a well-timed dive jump, which allows us to beat all the brutals in the game coinless. And with this, we already made it into the Cascade Kingdom, the first real kingdom of the game. The Cascade Kingdom is another stage that I quite like. It is built like a spiral upwards with several paths that connect the looping structure. A pretty cool layout for a three-dimensional space in my opinion. There is the waterfall in the center that adds a lot of flair to the environment, and then there are... Wait a second. Did you see this? We just got ambushed by a coin that was hiding in a bush. Typical guerrilla welfare, but not a big deal. All that we have to do is to jump off of this cliff so that we respawn at the checkpoint right here and... Wait, why do we already have a coin again? What is going on here? Oh no, they really... Please don't. Oh no. There is a coin in the bush and the bush is in front of the checkpoint. Whenever we spawn, we immediately get killed by the coin again. As soon as the coin counter hits 1, we are legally dead by definition. We respawn dead. We have to jump off the cliff here. That's the rules we settled on. But jumping off the cliff side puts us back into a position where we immediately have to jump off of the cliff again. We are stuck in a shiny and glittering loop of death. That's no joke, by the way. We are really stuck here. We soft-locked our run. It actually happened. The coins defeated us. There is nothing that we can do to get out of this mess again. We have to delete our save file and start all over. You see what I mean with guerrilla welfare? That's not a fair challenge run anymore. That's bullying, but we won't break because of this. Luckily, we got soft locked very early in the game, so it just takes a couple of minutes to reach this spot again. The coins may have won a battle, but this war isn't over yet. As long as we stay the heck away from this cursed trap of a checkpoint, we're good. We can use the dino skip here to get to the Madame Brutal boss fight quickly. For those not familiar with the dino skip, it is a really neat little speedrun trick that has been around for ages. Basically, we capture the dino, run our dinosaur over the trampoline at the bottom, make the dinosaur go whee! And at the top of the jump, we uncapture it. This gives us just enough height to reach the plateau at the top, which allows us to teleport directly into the boss arena. An incredibly fast way to reach the top of the stage. But funnily enough, this is not even the fastest way to make it up there. The speedrun used this trick for ages, but as it turns out, there is an insanely difficult trick jump possible at this spot that allows us to climb up there as well. Here's how the current world record climbs up there. Yep. Pretty crazy. After defeating Madame Brutal, it is easy for us to pick up the missing moons without running into any shiny problems along the way. And with this, we're already on our way to the Sand Kingdom. And trying to beat the Sand Kingdom coinless actually reveals something quite interesting about the structure of the game. You see, we can't beat the story objectives here without grabbing any coins. The big problem is the 2D section in the tower. At the very end of this section, there is an impenetrable coin wall. There is just nothing we can do here. It is obviously impossible to make it past this coin wall without touching a dumb coin along the way. There might be a way to reach the top of the tower skipping the 2D section altogether that I don't know of. However, interestingly enough, we don't even need it. You see, when Nintendo designed the levels for Mario Odyssey, they designed them in a really unusual way. Most kingdoms in Mario Odyssey actually follow a very linear structure. As long as we follow the story missions of Mario Odyssey, the game is actually a very linear game. At all times, there is a clear objective right in front of us that we have to reach by following a path. But at the same time, there are also tons of small mini distractions that the developers hid along the way. There are many moons that are hidden all over the worlds. The basic structure is that we play along a linear path with many distractions along the way. Once we finish the linear path, however, the stage suddenly transforms into a completely open space that we can now explore to find all the distractions, objectives and secrets that we missed the first time. Usually they even add new stuff into the stage after we made it through the story missions for the first time, and yeah, I love this structure. I think it is a really clever way to structure a 3D Mario game. It allows the devs to send us through linear platforming gauntlets and to have set pieces and boss battles and whatnot, but it also allows for exploration along the way, while it all culminates in a huge open sandbox in the end. It's a really clever and unique structure for a Mario game, and it is this structure that actually allows us to avoid most of the shiny problems along our path. You see, interestingly enough, it is actually possible to collect the required amount of moons in the Sand Kingdom even if we don't finish a single story mission. There is just so much side content open from the beginning that we can just completely ignore the main mission. And the same is true for the Lake Kingdom. There are just so many easy to grab moons in the game. There are moons in the birds, there are moons in the ground, there are moons in the rabbits and moons underwater. And in the Wooded Kingdom, right besides the Odyssey, there is actually a moon in a rock. And this moon in the rock is kind of special. You see, this little moon that is trapped in the stone has actually a story to tell. A quite interesting and fun story that not only tells us a lot about Mario Odyssey, but also about its speedrun. And most importantly, this little rocky fellow has a story to tell that actually tells us a lot about the nature of speedrunning itself. So let's lean back for a moment and let's listen to what the stone has to tell. There is a common misconception that lots of folks have when it comes to speedrunning. You see, when people think about speedrunning, they usually think about the insanely high level of skill that is required to beat a game at a world record pace, and think that it is this skill that allows people to beat the game so fast. This is, however, often actually not the case. So, don't get me wrong, to be competitive at the speedrun of a game, you have to be insanely good at the game. But just to beat a game really fast, you don't necessarily have to be. Because for many games out there, the routing is actually responsible for like 80% of the fast times that people are able to pull off, and individual skill then is only the rest on top of it. Just knowing when to go where, what to grab, what to skip, knowing about easy glitches that allow for a sequence break, and in general just knowing an efficient route throughout the game can really allow people to get surprisingly good times, even if they aren't that good at the game. So for example, most of the people watching are probably good enough to get a sub 3 hour time with a little bit of practice in Odyssey, as long as they simply learn an optimized route through the game. The point here is the following: the routing of a speedrun is the foundation upon which insane individual accomplishments are then built. But finding an optimal route through a game is an incredibly complex problem. After all, no one has any clue what the fastest way through a game looks like when the game comes out. And thus, whenever a game comes out, everyone who is interested in running it comes together, and the community starts to figure out the routing. For Odyssey, that mainly meant figuring out what the most efficient moons are, and figuring out the fastest order in which to grab them. Which brings us back to the little rock and the story that it has to tell. You see, I actually learned the Odyssey speedrun route many years ago. So I never was really interested in running Odyssey competitively or anything, but when the game came out, I knew that I'll probably end up playing it dozens and dozens of times over the years for the channel, and so I figured it might be a good idea and, you know, fun to learn the optimal route through the game, just so that I can easily get to every point in the game within a couple of hours if I ever need to. And because of this, I was actually around during the time that the game was routed and learned the speedrun alongside it. Like really early, think the first couple of days after release. This soon after the release of a game, the route through it basically changes daily, which brings us to our famous little stone and the moon entrapped in it. You see, during the very early routing of a speedrun, people aren't really interested in figuring out the very optimal way to play a specific sequence in the game. The number one priority is to figure out a rough route that can be optimized later. And from the very beginning, it was just obvious that the moon and the rock will end up being part of the optimal route for Odyssey. It is directly besides the spot where we load into the kingdom, and there's another moon inside a rabbit right besides it. And thus this moon immediately made it into the first speedrun routes of Odyssey. But during the first couple of days, no one really spent a second thought on how to optimally grab the moon. This, however, didn't stop people from already running the little daily changing route that we had came up with so far. And this is why this stone is so interesting. You see, very early on, this little rock was causing pioneering Odyssey runners a bit of a headache, because this rock is really stupid to destroy without an optimal strategy. Here's how the rock works. Whenever we run into it, throw it, hit it with Cappy, or have it bounce into a wall or the floor, the rock takes a tiny bit of damage and jumps away from us. So to grab the precious moon inside the rock, we have to hit the little rock over and over, causing the rock to bounce over half the area in unpredictable patterns, which is obviously the very last thing that we'd ever want to do in a speedrun, which kind of raised the question: what is the optimal way to crack this rock open? Is it to ground pound the thing close to a wall and then to quickly throw Cappy at it several times? Is it to find a corner and to somehow soft lock the rock there using Cappy so that it takes several hits in quick succession? Is it to cleverly kick the rock along the route that we want to go anyway in such a way that it slowly breaks while we move to the next moon? How to crack open this rock. So for the first couple of days after release, this rock was causing mayhem, randomly flying around, bouncing all over the place, destroying PB paces left and right. And then one day someone was like, guys, did anyone ever check what happens if we run into another rock while we're carrying this one? And we were all like, no? Well, as it turns out, the rock breaks immediately if we run with it into another rock. Something that I remember made me chuckle quite a bit back in the day. Turns out, you can just run into the rock right besides it and immediately break the rock consistently this way, which is obviously a lot faster than bouncing it all over the map. This is just a little routing episode that I happen to remember and that I always have to think about when I grab this moon. And it is how I originally learned the route. But this is actually not the end of this little story yet, because as fast as running the rock into this rock is, as it turns out, that's still not the fastest way to break it. You see, the rock that breaks our rock is unfortunately not in the direction that we are heading. We actually want to head towards the shop after picking up this moon. But there is no rock breaking rock to break the rock on in the direction of the shop. The rock which breaks the rock is slightly off our optimal route. If we were to find a way to avoid running to this rock and to instead manage to break the rock right where it lies, it would be even a tiny bit faster. And of course the community soon figured out a way to do exactly that. You see, while all the rocks to break the rock are out of our path, there actually is a rock directly on the rocky road to the rock. If we pick up this rock and run it into the rock, however, the rock with the moon breaks the rock in our hand, but it itself bounces away. But what if we were to take the wrong rock, but instead of running the wrong rock into the right rock, throw it just when we reach the right rock and then pick up the right rock right as the wrong rock is hitting it? If we do all of this correctly, then the moon is finally freed from its rocky prison, which, dare I say it, really rocks. And this very thing is what the speedrun has been doing for years now, and that's the little story that the rock has to tell. So what's the moral of the rock story? Is there some wisdom to be learned by listening to the rock? Well, actually yes. You see, grabbing the 3 moons here in the fastest possible sequence is just a tiny little optimization problem. It wasn't terribly difficult for the community to figure it out, and it isn't really that difficult to pull off when playing the game. But there are hundreds, if not even thousands, of such little problems everywhere in the Mario Odyssey speedrun, and each and every single one of those sequences had to be routed in an optimal way at some point by some members in the community. It's solving all those little problems that make speedrunning a game possible in the first place. It's the foundation upon which really skilled players are competing for the best times. And this foundation, solving all those silly little optimization problems like optimally breaking the rock, are a collaborative effort. It takes the collaborative effort of the entire community to figure stuff like this out. There are lots of people contributing to speedruns that may never end up really running the game themselves competitively, and that yet are still contributing in some form to the actual world records. And this structure of collaboration, stacked upon collaboration within a community that is only competitive at the very end, is like such a beautiful structure. You know, speedrunning is obviously competitive in the end, but the way to get there requires so much collaboration. And this structure is just really rare and quite frankly special. You know, most speedrunning communities are really welcoming and nice communities, something that is actually very rare for something that at its top is competitive. I sometimes wonder if it is this structure of competition that is built upon cooperation that makes so many of those communities such nice places. And I wonder if it is this property of speedrunning that gives it its magical power to transform even something as silly as this little throwaway moon in a rock into an interesting part of the game with its own tiny story to tell. But back to our plumber on a very important mission. So how has Mario been doing while we were on our rocky tangent? He did poorly. Excellent. No unwanted wealth increase for now. And up we go to the next kingdom, the best kingdom in the game. The Cloud Kingdom. So why is the Cloud Kingdom the best kingdom in the game, I hear you ask? Well, because there isn't a single dumb coin to be found in it when we first arrive here. What a wonderful and peaceful place. There is nothing stopping us on our journey in this kingdom. Neither is there anything in the Lost Kingdom. So, while there are no complications going on in the Lost Kingdom or the Cloud Kingdom, they're still really interesting, but for another reason. You see, when we arrive in the Cloud Kingdom, we actually don't know that we are about to arrive in it. The game actually shows us the Metro Kingdom as the next stop in the menu, but then the game throws a boss fight into our path as a surprise that ends with us being stranded in a completely different place. The Metro Kingdom was heavily featured in the promotional material of the game leading up to its release, and I remember being excited to finally get there when I first played the game. But then the game had different plans and threw an entirely new kingdom in my path. They're deliberately toying with our expectations here, something that the game does often and something that I quite enjoy. The moon crates, for example, that are hidden in all stages that we only get to open after the credits are another example for the game toying with our expectations of its scope and yeah, it's something that I really like about the game. Next up, finally, the Metro Kingdom. The Metro Kingdom is the first one that causes us huge problems on our coinless journey. You see, the big reason why making our way through the game coinless has been so smooth so far is because most of the game is non-linear. We can just turn around and leave as soon as a coin is causing us trouble and look for a good moon to pick up somewhere else. That is, as long as the game is non-linear, which is why the Metro Kingdom is causing us so much headache, because the Metro Kingdom starts with a long linear section. And this linear section... Ew. First things first. The tanks. Everyone's favorite capture is at it again. The tanks are causing mayhem. Here's the tank problem. The tanks shoot bullets, and those bullets do not only damage Mario if they hit us, they actually damage everything that comes in contact with them. And unfortunately for us, as well as for the tanks, anything does include other tanks as well. Our big problem at the beginning of this section is that the tanks are murdering their allies and even themselves, because... well, I don't know if I've ever said it before, but it obviously needs to be said. It is because tanks are dumb. The entire beginning of the Metro section is a huge, gigantic, friendly fire carnage. The tanks are just shooting on their own over and over again, which is a huge problem because, as most of you sharp viewers probably already have guessed, we always get punished with a coin whenever a tank shoots down a busby or one of their own, which means we have to make it through this part in such a way that the dumb enemies don't murder each other, which isn't even difficult, it's just incredibly inconsistent. We just randomly get coins out of nowhere because a tank on the other side of the level suddenly decided to murder its neighbor. But that isn't even the worst thing, because at the beginning of the Metro Kingdom a huge catastrophe happened. Something that we've all been worrying about since we started this little journey together. A terrific mistake. You see, at the very beginning of the kingdom, all my gaming skills suddenly vaporized for one terrible moment in time, and the fuzzy gods weren't watching over me for one brief second. And then it already had happened. That was all that it took. At the beginning of the Metro Kingdom, I accidentally grabbed a token of disgrace. A mistake that can't be undone. By our own rules, we have to pull out the coins of shame counting, coin counter of shame coins, and we have to increase it. But let me assure you that I indeed feel very ashamed, which already brings us to the next shameful incident, the incident in the tower. So what terrible thing happened in the tower? What catastrophic event blemished our sacred run here? Well, you see, climbing up the tower is kinda tricky, not because of the level geometry and not because of some random floating coins, but because of guerrilla welfare, once again. Once again, the coins are trying to trick us into picking them up. You see those little Goompalings waddling around here? Well, those aren't Goompalings, they're coins. You see the bees flying at us? No bees. Coins again. You see this poster? Yes, this poster is also a coin. You see this spot? That's invisible coins ambushing us. Everything is a dumb coin here. We just have to be really careful if we want to reach the top perfectly healthy and perfectly broke. It's just really awkward to climb up here. And then the infamous tower incident happened. I was freeing Mario with a couple of riches, which he accidentally picked up by throwing his body into the abyss when all of a sudden... oh, the humiliation. The shame. Pull out the coins of shame counting, coin counter of shame coins, and while we're at it, we might get the final indignity done, because a bit later, in a challenge room, we accidentally pick up another 2 terrible tokens after another mistake. Our little trip into the Metro Kingdom is slowly turning into a coinish nightmare come true, and we haven't even talked about the biggest problem yet, the biggest threat to our run that we encounter so far. Once again, our problem is not a coin, but a tank. The problem is the tank during the Mecha Wiggler boss fight. So here's the problem. There are 2 tanks present in the boss arena when we spawn in. We defeat the boss by capturing one of the 2 tanks and then by shooting at the boss's glowing mechanical wiggler parts. So far so good. Once again we have to make sure that the other tank doesn't die, because if it dies we're punished with an unfortunate increase in riches. And this is where we run into our big problem. We can't save the tank. No matter what we do, the second tank here is destined to die. The problem here isn't us. It's the boss. After shooting at all the glowing wiggler bits for the first time, the Mecha Wiggler gets all grumpy and enrages. And the second he enrages, the tank dies. It just dies. The sight of the angry boss is too much for the tank's poor little engine, I guess. He nopes out of the game, but before he leaves us something behind. something shiny. As soon as the boss enrages, we are punished with a stupid coin because the idiotic tank dies. We have to enrage the boss to beat the boss, and we have to beat the boss to beat the game. So we're stuck here with an idiotic shiny tank coin, which is kind of a problem. Quite frankly, that's the first time that I really got stuck, apart from the infinite coin loop of death in the beginning. But luckily for us, there is actually a way to solve this seemingly impossible situation. You see, tanks only punish us with a coin if they die. They do, however, not increase our wealth if we get them to despawn in any other way, which is exactly how we solve this little mess. If we hit the boss until only 1 or 2 spots are unhurt, then uncapture our tank and switch over to the second tank, then the first tank despawns after a while, which opens up a short window before it respawns. And in this window, we can actually shoot at the boss without causing any devastating coincidence, and hooray! We just managed to enrage the boss without being punished with gold for doing it. We just got rid of our biggest problem in the Metro Kingdom, and our shameful coin counter of shame still clocks in at none. Excellent. With this victory in our pockets, the rest of the Metro Kingdom isn't going to stop us. We can easily grab all the necessary moons here without even getting close to a dumb coin. The Metro Kingdom wasn't able to stop us, and neither is the Snow Kingdom. We can easily grab enough moons here to proceed without running into any troubles. With this, we already reached the Seaside Kingdom. Would you believe it? After all the stressful and traumatic tank suiciding, after getting stuck in infinite loops of gold, and after avoiding not just coins but also frogs and posters, it is finally time for Mario to put on the bathing suit and to go on a relaxing swim. So while everyone's favorite plumber gets some well-earned rest, let's talk about something else for a second. Something that I always found a bit weird about the Seaside Kingdom. It's just a tiny little thing, but it always confused me. And if we actually think it through, it has really strange consequences. It might be nothing, it might hint at something larger, it might just be a me thing, but it's so strange, you know? But one thing after the other. There is a really clever little game design trick that Mario Odyssey likes to do before many of its boss fights. You see, if there is a boss or something similar coming up, the game often uses the level design before the boss to sneakily prime us on how the boss mechanics are going to work. A great example for this is in the Lake Kingdom. We deal damage to Rango by jumping on his head. The way we get up to the tall rabbit's head is by stepping onto this flower head and bouncing off of it. And thus the section leading up to Rango is built around those little flower pets on the ground. The nifty level designers at Nintendo constructed the lead up to the boss around the mechanic with which we then defeat the boss. Because this way they don't have to teach us how the mechanic works during the boss fight. This trick is called priming, and if you look for it you can find it everywhere. But why do I bring this up while talking about the Seaside Kingdom? One might ask. Well, because the entire beginning of the Seaside Kingdom is actually built around this little trick. The entire beginning of the Seaside Kingdom is just one gigantic primer on how the Octo Mozart boss fight is going to work. We have to ground pound 4 switches into the ground. And all of those switches tutorialize either how the Gushen capture works, or parts of the boss fight. One switch, for example, is up high in the air and we have to learn how to get up there with a Gushen. One is below dangerous toxic liquid that we can disperse by using the Gushen on top of it, which primes us to do the same with the liquid on the boss's head, and so on. The entire section here is designed in a way that allows the developers to let us off the hook once the boss fight begins. The level itself trains us so that no further training is required during the fight. There is one thing about Super Mario Odyssey's user interface that I always found extremely weird. And this thing is actually visible right now. It is sitting right there in the top right corner. Do you notice the strange object that has me so confused? Exactly, it is the menu and map text, and much more importantly, the compass. For whatever reason, Nintendo decided to permanently show us the button prompts for opening the map and for opening the menu. Those explanations are up there throughout the entire game. This information here just never goes away. That's how important Nintendo's designers deemed this information to be. But even weirder, during the entire runtime of Super Mario Odyssey, there's a compass displayed at the top right corner. A compass that is beyond useless. I have hundreds of hours in the game and I can't recall even a single instance in which I wanted to know the direction I was facing. Since we can open the map at pretty much any point anyway, and since the map shows us orientation much faster than it would be to figure it out using a compass, there is just no use for this little icon there. During the entire game, the right top of the screen is filled with user interface elements that are utterly useless. Whenever we capture a new enemy in the game, a huge text prompt pops up at the bottom of the screen. A huge prompt that explains to us what the new capture does and what buttons to use. And I never quite liked this huge text prompt for two completely different reasons. So first, it feels so uninviting. It kind of creates a barrier between us and the game. There is Mario, who just captured a new enemy, there are we on the other side of the screen, and between us and our character, there is this huge message prompt. It literally puts a message by the developers between me and the game. The fact that the thing is so large and uninviting just makes it feel as if we aren't really supposed to stay in the capture form for long, but that this is just a very short one-off thingy that requires a quick further explanation. That's the one thing I dislike. But what about the other? Well, the other thing that I dislike is the very fact that the prompts spell out what the capture does. Because why do that? Odyssey has an extremely simple control scheme. Many buttons on a controller actually end up being unused. Most captures just have one or two simple functions. They are so simple that everyone should be able to quickly figure out how they work via experimentation. There's just no need to tell us that a hammer bro throws dumb hammers if we press a button, because everyone is going to press the button anyway to test what it does after capturing one. The huge tutorial prompt just transforms the exciting moment of capturing a new enemy from a moment of experimentation into a moment of teaching, where we have to read a text message by the developers, teaching us what to do. Which, yeah, I never really liked that. For most captures, Nintendo eventually removes the prompt, but the game is oddly incoherent with when it does this, which finally brings us to the point of this little tangent. So why do I bring up that the lead up to the Octopus fight is designed as one gigantic primer that teaches us how the boss works? The huge prompts that are shown when we capture enemies and the useless compass, one might ask. And the answer is because all of those things are actually connected, and they all hint at something quite strange that doesn't make much sense, at least in my humble opinion. Here's the thing, the entire beginning of the Seaside Kingdom is designed to subtly teach us how to use the Gushen to then defeat the boss with it. And yet, they do not remove the ugly tutorial prompt during the boss fight, at least not in the beginning. They go through all the trouble of designing the entire level in such a way that it teaches us how to fight the boss, and then they undermine their own work by keeping the tutorial prompt up while fighting it, which is just, why would they do this? Which brings us to the other really strange thing with those ugly tutorial prompts, because, you know, if they really insist on having those up all the time, then there would be an actually much better spot where they can display them. A spot that they even already use to explain button inputs. A spot currently occupied by a completely useless compass. Why didn't they get rid of the compass that, you know, does nothing and instead showed us the capture controls up there in a far less intrusive way? So, just that no one gets me wrong, I don't think that those UI design choices are a serious problem that the game has or anything. The game is not worse because they show the controls during the boss fight in an intrusive way or anything. It's just, you know, it's so strange that they made those weird UI decisions in the first place. The information which button opens up the menu really doesn't need to be displayed throughout the entire game. The compass is useless and the capture tutorial prompt is too intrusive and should have been up there instead, at least in my opinion. Finally, it is really strange that they undermine all the priming that they're doing by keeping the prompts up during the boss fight anyway. You know, why design the level as a hidden teaching mechanism if you end up teaching it to the players anyway in the end? Again, nothing of this is a serious problem. The reason I bring this up is actually a completely different one. You see, throughout the entire console generation, Nintendo has made strange user interface and user experience decisions. Breath of the Wild has problems with the user experience, Tears of the Kingdom has them, Echoes of Wisdom has UI decisions that are beyond weird, and at least in my opinion, even Mario Maker 2 suffers from a worse user interface than its predecessor. And now we're here in front of Odyssey, and even here, Nintendo already made strange user experience decisions. The thing that I wonder is if Nintendo somehow lost talent on that front over the past decade or something, because Nintendo used to be really good with those things and recently has been, well, really bad. I wonder what happened. Anyway, so back to our very important self-set challenge. While we were complaining about useless compasses, Mario single-handedly finished the Seaside Kingdom without running into any shiny complications. And while he was at it, he also quickly slaughtered a dragon and made it through Luncheon. What a surprisingly versatile little plumber he is. And with this, gentle ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people in general, we're actually already in Bowser's Kingdom. We're getting really close to actually beating the game without picking up a dumb single coin. We might actually pull this off. But first, we have to solve a problem. The following. If we want to leave Bowser's Kingdom again, we have to defeat the Brutal Machine boss at the very end. And surprisingly for us, this boss fight is not a big deal. There is actually a really unusual strategy that allows us to defeat this boss without any coin collecting incidents. A strategy I personally barely ever used before to defeat the boss, but one that works perfectly every single time. A strategy called doing the fight in the intended way. Funnily enough, we're never punished with any coins as long as we just capture the first bird we see, never leave the bird capture during the fight, and just defeat the boss using the intended method, which is great. The boss is not the problem. The path towards it, however, well, that's a different story. You see, at one point on the path to the boss, we have to make it through this section. In this section, we're supposed to grab 5 small moon pieces that are hidden all over the place to spawn in the story moon, which opens up this gate. We can actually theoretically reach the other side of this gate without spawning in the moon, but this sadly doesn't help us, because the electrical pole thingy that carries us to the next part of the level only spawns in once the door is open. So we need to get the 5 moon shards. So far so good. And 4 of those moon shards are really easy to grab. It is annoying to get them because the whole area is filled with exploding boom balls and waddling bird captures that teamed up to make our trip as annoying as possible, because if any of those balls hits the bird goes boom and our account balance increases lethally, so we have to play protect the bird while grabbing the moon shards, but that's an annoyance, not the actual problem. The actual problem is this crate. This single crate here is capable of ending dreams and of obliterating runs. It is the cursed crate of doom, and it is here to punish us for our sins. Here's the deal. The moon shard that we need to proceed is in this crate, alongside a coin. One especially filthy coin realized that we have to destroy this crate to proceed with the game, and thus hid within, patiently waiting for its opportunity to curse us with its blessing. Collecting this stupid coin in the dumb crate is unavoidable. We have to destroy the crate here by shooting one of Bowser's boom balls into it, and as soon as we destroy the crate of doom, we doom ourselves. There's just nothing that we can do here. This dumb crate, this horrible, dumb, idiotic crate is on the critical path through the game, and within it, there's a catastrophic coin hidden. The moment we all dreaded has sadly finally come. It is time for us to pull out the shameful coin counter of shame, and to set it to 1. If we want to beat the game, we have to destroy this crate. If we destroy this crate, we get a coin. There's sadly nothing that we can do about it. You know, that's just how guerrilla welfare works. They slowly grind you down, sting by sting, until they got you in a position you can't get out of anymore. And only then they strike. They want us to give up, but we're not going to carve. You know what? Maybe it's not possible to beat Super Mario Odyssey coinless. Maybe there is one coin that we can't avoid. Let them have their dumb moment of victory. Let the coins celebrate for a bit. Let them win this battle. But we're not going to surrender. Even if a coin somehow managed to sneak into our purse once, that doesn't mean that we now have to run around collecting dumb, stupid, shiny gold pieces wherever we go. Because this is exactly what they want us to do. They want to wear us down, jab by jab, attack by attack, hidden coin by hidden coin. From the exploding birds to the stupid tank coins. From the coins hiding in the bushes to the coins ambushing us in posters. From invisible coins waiting to attack us to coins that get collected off screen. They want us to abandon our mission. They want to bully us into collecting them. But they won't get it their way. Maybe there is one coin in Super Mario Odyssey that we are forced to collect, but we're going to make sure that this one is the last one. And with this newly found determination, the rest of Bowser's Kingdom isn't going to stop us. We're now shooting for the moon. Quite literally. The moon is the last challenge between us and the coins. It is one final epic battle in space. It is us versus riches. Grabbing no coins on the surface of the moon is really easy. The true challenge awaits us on the moon's inside. The final challenge of our run is to beat the moon cave coinless. Here's what we're up against. First, there is a dangerous lava pit that we have to cross, flanked by pillars on top of which invisible coins are hiding. At the end of this lava lake, several tanks position themselves at strategically advantageous positions. They are hiding behind coin-loaded rocks, ready to blow a coin onto our deposit as soon as they first spot us. Next up, there is a long, linear section atop moving platforms. First, we have to dodge dumb hammer bros that uselessly fling hammers towards us before surviving a dangerous trip atop a platform full of wiggling wigglers. All along the path, coins have strategically positioned themselves in a desperate final attempt to ambush us. Finally, we're confronted with a destructive bullet bill wall section. In the final bit, we have to capture a bullet bill and somehow navigate it towards this very platform. All the while, other bullet bills are flying past us, trying to hit rock walls behind us that all forcefully enrich us. Let's go. The first section already confronts us with lots of complications. The tanks really did their homework. They positioned themselves in such a dumb way that it is almost impossible to get close to them without them firing into a gold-loaded rock. As soon as we just get close, the tanks fire into the crates off-screen, making this assault incredibly dangerous. Luckily, it is actually the coins that made a mistake here for once. You see, the coins did indeed find the perfect spot to ambush us here. They hit atop the walls and pillars. But the trap that the coins built has a weakness that we can exploit to safely reach the next area. You see, if we really hurry and immediately jump off of the pillars after landing on them, then we are actually too fast for the sneaky little coins. Instead of getting surprised by the coins, we actually surprise the coins with our quickness instead. We can actually platform over those pillars so fast that the coins can't sneak into our purses. And this little oversight allows us to disable the trap that the tanks set up. The thing is the following: if we approach the tank line from above, the tanks are confused. Instead of firing into the rocks in front of them, as was planned, they now fire at us coming from above. But they did not place blocks above them, which gives us an opportunity to quickly deactivate their line of defense by capturing them. And with this, we already made it through the first dangerous section. Next up, the Hammer Bros and Wiggler bit. So the tanks managed to figure out a brilliant war plan that we just barely were able to make it past. The Hammer Bros, on the other hand, well, they completely failed to formulate any strategy at all. Their plan is to uselessly throw hammers at us, hoping that we might grab a coin by accident. I'm really sorry, bros, but that strategy ain't going to make no one rich. Which finally brings us to the bullet bill bit, the last thing standing between us and the perfect single coin run of Super Mario Odyssey. The coin's last line of defense. And unfortunately for us, their best one. The big problem is right in front of us. You already figured out the bullet bill's evil plan. Exactly, those stone bricks here are almost all loaded with coins. As soon as we get close to the wall, a gigantic bullet bill shoots out and starts to destroy the blocks in front of us, causing total mayhem. So luckily for us, Nintendo decided for whatever reason that the rocks directly in front of the bullet bill are not loaded with coins. But unfortunately for us, all the others are. This is the huge trap that the bullet bills prepared. You see, as soon as we are behind the wall, or just to its left or right, one of the bullet bills starts to chase us. And by flying towards us, the bullet bill destroys parts of the wall in front of it. If a bullet bill spawns in while we are behind this wall, we are shiny yet deadly toast. The bullet bill will always fly in an arc towards us, and by doing so it will always crack open one of the terrible rocks. We have to somehow make it from this spot here all the way to this very platform without loading in any bullet bills that fly around uncontrolled, which is insanely difficult because this here is roughly the spawn area of the bullet bills. Yep. As soon as we are in any spot inside this area, even if it is just for a couple of frames, this blaster back here activates and immediately spawns in a bullet bill that will always fly into coin-loaded crates, causing us devastating prosperity. It is an almost perfect line of defense. But we're not going to yield. We are going to figure this out. The first thing I tried was to look for a flight path that allows us to navigate the bill in such a way that we manipulate the movement of all the others. But it just immediately became apparent that this is impossible. We just get coined from the left and right as soon as we enter this terrible shiny death trap. The next thing I tried was to take a bullet bill to the pillars to the west to see if it is somehow possible to make it up there from below, skipping the bullet bill section entirely. But that just also seems impossible to pull off. Next, I tried luring a bullet bill out of the spawn area and then to fly it in a really wide arc around the spawning spots so that we can avoid the terrible loading zone altogether. But the bullet bill just doesn't have enough reach to make this flight if we grab it from so far behind. Next, I tried to make use of a simple little trick. You see, the bullet bills are actually so gigantic that it is possible for Mario to decapture them mid-flight above the lava and then to throw Cappy immediately again to reset the mind control mid-flight. Theoretically, we can repeat this little trick as often as we want. But sadly, it doesn't help us either, because recapturing the bills sadly does not reset the timer in air. It is fancy, but completely useless. At first glance, it simply appears to be impossible to make it past this trap. It looks as if the coins got us once again. But then, during our darkest hour, I suddenly had an idea. An outrageous one. Something that just can't be the solution. All those years we've been making fun of them, it's just a completely bonkers threat. But maybe this is the moment. Maybe this is the moment they actually prove to the world that they are good for something. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the Hammer Bros might actually be able to destroy those walls with their dumb tiny hammers. In theory, it is possible to get to the spot with one of the Hammer Bros from before. Maybe we can get rid of the rocks this way so that the bullet bills can't destroy them anymore. After all those years, the Hammer Bros finally get a chance to be useful. After years of bullying, it might finally be time for the Hammer Bros to finally make it into the category of Mario enemies I feel okayish about. Maybe it is finally time for forgiveness and for absolution. If the Hammer Bros are able to get us out of this little rut, then they proved for the entire world to see that they are not entirely useless after all. And thus, we grab one of the bros, we waddle towards the bullet bill, we raise our swollen hammer-swinging fingers and ready the hammer. This is the moment. The hammer flies. It reaches the rock. It breaks the rock. The rocks that the bullet bills planned so carefully to destroy are gone. And our coin counter is about to explode. Ugh, stop that, Hammer Bros. You're going to make all of us rich. Why did I even bother trying this? The Hammer Bros are exactly as useless as I expected them to be. A rookie mistake. We have to fix this little mess ourselves, I guess. And then I had an actually good idea. You see, if we actually stop the bullet bill for a second here and then capture it right the moment before it hits us, then we actually delay capturing it for long enough for the next bullet bill to spawn in. If we now capture the bullet bill again, then we have enough time to fly out of the spawning zone again, while the other bullet bill respawned in already is past the crates. This gives us a much better starting position when trying to reach the platform at the back. And with this little trick, it is actually possible to reach the final platform at the very end of the lava. And we're still within the loading zone. The only safe spot to approach the platform is from behind. So the timing here is incredibly tight and it took me tons of tries, but if we shake the bullet bill like a madman while flying, and if we jump out of it at just the right moment, then we're actually able to... Hooray! We actually did it! We made it past the bullet bill's line of defense. We reached this platform without spawning in any coin granting bullet bills. All that is left for us to do is to capture the electronic wire and to leave this terrible, terrible place behind. Oh my god. Please don't. Did you just see that too? Please no. Oh god. The electrical wire reaches into the spawning zone. We spawn in a bullet bill while transitioning to the next platform. Every single time we get coins when we use the wire here. That just always happens when traveling up there. I just can't. The coins, they're just outplaying us at our own game today. all this welfare, all these traps, the psychological terror, the bullying, the ambushing, the friendly fire, I just can't anymore. The coins, they're really outplaying us today. They're so evil, so relentless, so dedicated, How are we supposed to beat an enemy that isn't fighting fair? And let's face it, we already have lost. The coins already forced us to delete our save file. Only minutes into the run, they forced us to pick up a coin in Bowser's Kingdom. Even if we somehow were to manage to make it to Bowser's Wedding on the Moon without picking up this coin in the cave, what's the point? Let's face it, we are already defeated. It doesn't matter what happens next. The box here defeated us. The dumb metal box in Bowser's Kingdom. We have to face it. This box is stronger than we are. No matter what we do, how often we poke it, how hard we ground pound it, it's just stronger than we are. We have to accept it. There is no point in rising up to the coins. We aren't strong enough. We shouldn't have tried in the first place. It's hopeless. It always has been. And here we are, in our darkest hour, desperately poking at the one thing that managed to beat us, wishing for the sweet relief of a power outtake. Desperate, defeated and sad. So sad. Sad. When all of a sudden, a miracle, as all hope seemed lost, all of a sudden, a divine intervention. The fuzzy gods have not forsaken us after all. All of a sudden, our beak breaks the box. Yup, as it turns out, it is actually possible to destroy the metal crates using nothing but our bird beaks. It takes literally about 200 bird beak pokes, but it is possible. For whatever reason, Nintendo put this into the game. But even crazier, if our bird beak poking is what destroys the crate, then we are spared the coin. And at that point, I realized what a huge mistake we made before. We allowed the coins to trick us into believing that they actually wield any power over us. But their bullying is no sign of strength, it is actually a sign of weakness. The coins are weak, they're insecure, they are lost, they pretend to have the situation under control, but in truth they're just desperate for our attention. They're completely incapable of leaving one of Bowser's stages on their own. They need us. But we do not need them. We're in total control here. We are the ones yielding all the power. There is nothing to fear but wealth itself. We thought that we were already defeated, but as a matter of fact, it is perfectly possible to reach the moon without ever picking up a coin. And it was at this very moment that I realized what a huge mistake we actually had made. We are playing the game that the coins want us to play. The coins want us down there in the cave, preventing tanks from friendly firing themselves, tricking us into believing Hammer Bros could be useful, and manipulating spawn paths. That's where they are at their best, but we can actually beat them at their own game. For once we can actually trick them, because while it might be true that it is not possible to make it through the cave without picking up a coin, why even go down there? We never should have ran against their last line of defense to begin with. We never should have entered that hellish place. After all, the moon cave skip never got patched. What are we even doing down there? You see, there is actually a quite tricky trick jump that we can do near the cave entrance. If we ground pound on top of the Sphinx, then throw Cappy at the wall in such a way that we bounce off of it again and then wall jump off of this spot, then we gain just enough height to wall jump here as well, which gives us just enough height to skip the entire cave. Hooray! We can actually skip the cave like this. This might just be a small jump for us, but it is a huge jump for poverty. So gentle ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people in general, do you see this desperate coin pile lying on top here? Those coins are actually the last coins in the entire game. We did it. We managed to beat Super Mario Odyssey without picking up a single dumb coin. They almost tricked us into believing it is impossible, but we did it either way. Hooray! Before we wrap this up, just a couple more things. So first things first, a huge and gigantic thank you to all my wonderful patrons whose names are currently floating by. Videos like this one take an insane amount of work to produce, and it would currently not be possible for me to put in the hours required if it weren't for all those awesome people. A huge and gigantic thank you to all of them for this. Second, a couple of closing thoughts on Odyssey. Odyssey in general is one of my favorite games Nintendo ever made, and that is mainly for one very simple reason. You see, Odyssey isn't a flawless game. It's actually far from it. There are tons of problems in it that I all skipped in the video because they all have been discussed over and over again already, but the biggest and most obvious problem that the game has is that the content just begins to repeat itself ad nauseum after a while. After a while, all the Scarecrow moons, all the Goomba towers, all the Light the Torch moons and whatnot just start to blend together, and the game loses a lot of the things that make it so special during the beginning. But while the game might not be flawless, it is just really, really, really good at one specific thing. So good, as a matter of fact, that I don't think any game comes even close to Odyssey when it comes to this specific aspect. And this is Mario's moveset. It's just so much fun to pilot Mario through all those worlds that I'm still not tired of it after all those years. At this point, I honestly play Odyssey more like a sandbox in which I mess around with Mario, try to pull off weird stuff, reach places I'm not supposed to go, or try to beat the game while avoiding all the dumb coins along the way. And somehow, it is this quality of it, this sandboxiness, that I just don't get tired of. And I hope that whatever Nintendo has in store for Mario on the Switch 2 hopefully keeps those qualities as well. Hooray! So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and maybe you feel especially like a coin entrapped in a rock trying to break free today and want to hit the subscribe button as well. Finally, if you really loved the video and want to help content like this survive on the platform, then there's also the option to support the channel via Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, lots of hugs.